Let's begin. The scent of burnt espresso lingered in the kitchen the moment I walked in. I hadn't even taken my shoes off yet, but the silence in the house already told me everything I needed to know. Something was wrong. Again. My name's Gavin Rhodes, 31, and I've always lived by the rules. Be loyal, be kind, protect what matters. That's how I fell for Layla, now 30. We dated for 2 years before tying the knot. She was this dazzling, fast-talking consultant with a magnetic charm that drew people like moths to her flame. And I was just a software developer. Calm, predictable, but solid. For most of our marriage, things were great, or so I thought. But 2 months ago, Layla shattered that illusion with 8 words I never imagined I'd hear. I think we should open the marriage. At first, I laughed, thought it was a joke, but she wasn't smiling. I stood there, frozen, trying to keep my voice from cracking. Are you serious? She nodded, avoiding my gaze. It's just, things have gotten stale, Gav. I'm not saying I don't love you, but maybe this would bring back some fire. Fire? What fire was she missing? The memory of that conversation has replayed in my mind like a stuck record. I'd always been the guy to say yes to her. Yes to her job changes. Yes to the long-distance months. Yes to the sacrifices. But this time I couldn't. I wasn't built for sharing. My definition of loyalty wasn't flexible. No, I said then. I can't do that, Layla. That's not how I want to live. She didn't argue, didn't cry, just nodded, and that silence echoed louder than any scream. After that, the distance between us wasn't just emotional. It was physical. She was suddenly working late, canceling dinner plans, barely touching me in bed. The warmth I used to see in her eyes when I walked in, gone, replaced by something hollow. I tried to tell myself I was overreacting. She had interns at work now, a new team, new pressures. Maybe it was all just stress. Maybe she was tired. I blamed her job, not her heart. But I couldn't shake it. The late nights. The cold shoulders, the way she flinched when I reached for her. Then came the night I made her favorite, spinach lasagna from scratch. I lit candles, played her favorite playlist, set the table like it was our anniversary, just to remind her we were still us. She texted at 9:47 p.m., running late. Don't wait up. Might be past midnight. The message hit like a punch. I sat there, staring at the food, my appetite evaporating. Something in me cracked. I couldn't just sit there anymore, numbing myself with wine and waiting for a woman who barely looked me in the eyes anymore. So I drove to her office. Her building stood like a monolith in the empty city, the lobby lights buzzing softly. I waited in my car for over an hour. I didn't want to look paranoid. I just wanted to see her walk out. Just see her. But she never came. At 12:30 a.m., I went inside and asked the receptionist if Layla was still in. The woman looked confused, tapped a few keys, then shook her head. She clocked out hours ago, she said. I felt the blood drain from my face. On the drive home, my mind went places I didn't want it to go, but I still clung to hope. Maybe she had left for another client meeting. Maybe she was out with a coworker. Maybe anything but the worst. But she wasn't home either. I sat on a couch all night, eyes glued to the door. At dawn, I heard the key turn. She walked in quietly, heels in hand, makeup smudged. She looked satisfied. I asked her where she'd been. She didn't flinch. Meeting with an overseas client. Asian time zone. We had to use their U.S. office across town. I came home at 3 a.m. She said it so convincingly I almost bought it. Until she said she left her original office at 2:30 a.m., which didn't match what the receptionist told me. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I needed proof. Something solid. Not just suspicion. 2 days later, fate handed me that proof on a silver platter. She was lying on the bed, phone in hand, talking to her sick mother. I was at my desk, working, when I noticed her phone screen was unlocked. Notifications lit up the top. A message preview said, "Can't wait for our fun ride tonight." My pulse spiked. I picked up the phone and walked casually to the bathroom. Locked the door. My hands trembled as I opened her DMs. And there it was. Multiple chats with different men. All younger. All interns from her office. The conversations were vulgar, disgusting. Flirting, nudes, details of hookups. Some of them with 2 guys at once. My wife, the woman who once cried happy tears during our vows, was living a double life like some college groupie on a conquest tour. There were photos. So many photos. Some of her. Some of them. All of them together. Tangled up in hotel rooms, work parties, back seats. I emailed every single one to myself. Deleted the sent folder. Closed everything. Stepped out. She banged on the door the entire time. Gavin. My phone. Open the door. I passed it to her without a word. She stared at me, unsure of what I saw. I didn't give her a clue. Because revenge doesn't start with yelling. It starts with silence. I grabbed my car keys, said nothing, and drove straight to the location from her chat, some upscale hotel downtown. She was supposed to meet one of them there at 5 p.m. I sat in the hotel lounge from 3 p.m. onwards, drowning myself in whiskey. By 6, I was halfway to blacking out. But when I saw her walk in, wearing that red trench coat I bought her last Christmas, I sobered up in an instant. She was glowing, laughing, on her phone, not a care in the world. I walked up behind her, whispered, "Good luck with your ride." She froze, spun around. Her mouth opened, but I didn't care what she had to say. I walked away. That was the beginning. What came next? That was only chapter 1 of my revenge. I didn't remember how I got to Leo's apartment that night. All I knew was I was drunk, broken, and numb. The world around me was a blur of city lights and betrayal. Leo had been my best friend since college. He was the wild one, the charming fool with a reckless streak. I always envied how he danced through life. But that night, I showed up on his doorstep like a ghost. He opened the door and just stared. "Jesus, Gavin," he muttered, pulling me inside before I collapsed. "What the hell happened to you?" I couldn't even speak. I just dropped to the couch and passed out. When I woke up, it was past noon the next day. Sunlight poured in through the blinds, and the hangover punched me in the skull. Leo handed me a glass of water and a plate of scrambled eggs. "Start talking," he said. "Now." And I did. I told him everything. The suggestion for the open marriage. The excuses. The nights she came home late. The receptionist's contradiction. The messages. The photos. The hotel. The red coat. Leo sat in silence for a while. Then he stood, grabbed his laptop, and said something I didn't expect. "First things first. You're freezing the accounts. Today." I blinked. "I don't care about the money." "You will." He cut me off. "Trust me. Right now, you're heartbroken. But when that grief turns to rage, you'll want every ounce of control back. She doesn't get to cheat on you and still drain your bank account." We spent the next hour going through passwords, freezing cards, rerouting access. Leo even scheduled an STD panel for me. I didn't want to think about it, but I needed to. My phone stayed off for the rest of that day. When I finally turned it on, it exploded with notifications. Over 100 missed calls, dozens of voicemails, and messages ranging from pleading to raging. I didn't open a single one. I blocked her on everything. The rage didn't come in flames. It came like a cold fog. I was past screaming, past tears. I was hollow now, and hollowness has space for planning. Revenge wasn't going to be a loud outburst. It was going to be quiet, clinical, and devastating. I stayed at Leo's for the next few weeks. Layla tried everything. Calls, emails, even texts to Leo. One night, I caught him smirking at his phone. She just sent me a long-ass essay about how much she still loves you, how the hookups meant nothing, how she was just exploring herself. I scoffed. Exploring? Is that what we're calling betrayal now? He handed me the phone. She's spiraling. Says she quit her job. Can't get a referral because her interns leaked the photos to upper management. She's blacklisted in her own network. Good. That was karma arriving ahead of schedule. She wanted to be desired. Now she was desired by rumors and ridicule. Leo paused. "You gonna take her to court?" I shook my head. "Not yet. Because I had something better in mind." You see, Layla didn't know that I had mailed myself those photos. She thought she could talk her way out of this, twist the narrative. In her head, I was still the loyal, naive husband who wouldn't fight back. She was wrong. I reached out to a lawyer, Mason Whitaker, the sharpest in the area for divorce and digital evidence. He reviewed everything. Chat logs, images, screenshots, timestamps. He whistled low. "She's toast. You've got more than enough to push for a no alimony, at-fault divorce. But I assume that's not all you want." I smiled for the first time in weeks. "No," I said. "I want to leave her reputation in ashes, but legally. No drama. No headlines. Just consequences." He leaned back in his chair. "Then we'll need a plan. One that leaves no loophole for her to claim mental distress or spin this into victimhood." I nodded. Whatever it takes. We drew up a strategy. The first move? Total silence. That silence drove Layla insane. She expected a fight, a scream, a war. But I gave her nothing. She showed up at Leo's apartment once. Banged on the door. Leo told her I wasn't there. She cried on the doorstep. Then left. I watched the security footage from the hallway later that night, emotionless. She'd given herself away long ago. And still, she kept trying. She sent her sister, Erin, to plead with me. Gavin, please. Erin begged over the phone. She's not herself. She's spiraling. She lost her job, her friends, her entire network. She's on medication. She can't sleep. Good. I replied coldly. Maybe now she knows how it feels to be discarded. She said the interns used her. Erin continued. They leaked her photos around the office. Called her Easy Layla. They passed her around like a joke. She didn't know. I interrupted. She knew what she was doing. She chose to be used. She had a husband, a home, a life, and she traded it all for some cheap thrills. Erin was quiet. She says you made her feel old, unwanted. That's why she looked elsewhere. That hit me. It did. Not because it was true, but because it was the kind of lie people tell themselves to justify cruelty. I didn't make her feel unwanted. I was always there. I loved her through everything. I gave her stability, comfort, loyalty, but she wanted fireworks, and thought they'd come from 20-somethings who didn't know her name. I hung up the phone without another word. My revenge wasn't done. Not yet. Because I wasn't going to stop at divorce. No, Layla had wanted to play with lives. So now I'd rewrite hers. 2 weeks later, I mailed the divorce papers. No warning. No message. Just an envelope at her doorstep. Inside was everything. Proof of infidelity, legal documentation, and a note with one sentence. This is the price of feeling desirable. Layla didn't respond at first. But the next day, Leo called from work. She's at your apartment, he said, crying on the steps. Says she won't leave until she talks to you. I didn't go. Instead, I sent a process server. While she sat outside, sobbing like she was the victim, the server handed her the official paperwork. Her expression, Leo said, was priceless. A week passed. Then two. Then she lawyered up. Her attorney tried spinning it. Mental trauma, pressure at work, manipulation by interns. Layla claimed she'd begged for an open marriage because she didn't want to cheat, and my rejection forced her into infidelity. They were aiming for alimony. But Mason had everything ready. Let them come, he said. We'll burn them in court. In the meantime, I quietly leaked anonymous tips to her former workplace. HR opened an internal investigation. Apparently, Layla had taken multiple days off, claiming client meetings that didn't exist. The leaked photos resurfaced. Her former manager, a no-nonsense woman named Deborah, had no sympathy. Layla's reference was pulled. Blacklisted. She'd gone from being a rising star to a walking scandal. I was still calm. But the real blow, that was personal. Layla had been paying for one of the interns' college rent. I sent that intern's text to her father. He was a retired Army colonel. The kid's life blew up overnight. I wasn't done. I found out Layla had used our joint account to pay for hotel bookings during the affair. Mason filed for financial misconduct. Every dollar she spent. Traced. Categorized. Presented in court. I watched her sit there, shoulders hunched, as the judge reviewed every charge. When the verdict came, it was brutal. No alimony. No assets. No sympathy. Layla stood up and tried to speak, but her voice cracked. The judge didn't even look at her. Outside the courthouse, she saw me for the first time in months. Her eyes were red. Hollow. She whispered, I never meant to lose you. I looked her dead in the eye. You didn't lose me, Layla. You threw me away. Then I walked off. After the court ruling, something shifted in me. It wasn't pride. It wasn't even satisfaction. It was stillness. I didn't go out celebrating. There were no victory drinks or toasts with Leo. I just walked back to my car, shut the door, and stared through the windshield in silence. I had won. But what do you do when revenge tastes bitter? The woman I once promised my life to had become a stranger. No, worse. She had become the storm that nearly destroyed me. And now, I was standing in the wreckage. Alone. But that's the thing about hitting rock bottom. There's only one way left to go. Up. I moved into a quiet, smaller apartment across town. It had no shared memories. No smells of her perfume. No framed wedding pictures. It was empty, and I needed that. I needed a blank slate. I started running every morning, not because I liked it, but because it helped me breathe again. Every footstep on the pavement was a reminder. I'm still here. Leo kept checking in, dropping off food, making dumb jokes, trying to lift the air. He even signed me up for a weekend hiking group. I swear, he said, handing me a backpack, you keep moping and I'm going to toss your sorry self off a trail. I gave a half laugh. Wouldn't blame you. Meanwhile, Layla's name kept surfacing, for all the wrong reasons. Word had spread. She'd been ghosted by every firm she applied to. Her ex-interns had shared her photos in private chat groups, and one of them, some idiot named Brad, even posted anonymously about her on Reddit. People figured it out fast. Her reputation wasn't just damaged. It was obliterated. Erin messaged me again. She's not okay, Gavin. She barely eats. Cries all night. She says she wants to fix it all. I didn't respond. What was there to fix? But then Erin added something that made me pause. She sold her car. Her watch. I think she's trying to pay back the money she used from the joint account. That stung. For a second, I almost felt bad. Almost. But then I remember those texts. The photos. The nights I sat waiting alone while she tangled herself in the arms of boys who couldn't name her favorite song, who never held her hand through a funeral or paid her mother's hospital bills. She didn't deserve my guilt. Still, part of me wondered, did she ever think about what we had? About the quiet mornings, the road trips, the stupid fights over toothpaste brands? I guess it didn't matter anymore. What mattered was that I wasn't broken anymore. I had been, but the pieces were slowly stitching back together, one day at a time. One morning, I woke up, checked my email, and saw a message from a woman named Sierra. She worked at a local nonprofit. Apparently, we'd met years ago during a fundraiser Layla dragged me to. She'd seen my name in a tech magazine about a data security app one was building with Leo. She was curious if I'd like to help the nonprofit with digital protection for their donors. It wasn't a date. It wasn't flirting. But it was something. I met Sierra a few days later at a quiet cafe. She was warm, sharp, and refreshingly honest. We talked for 2 hours about work, trust, betrayal, and what it meant to start over. I didn't tell her everything about Layla, but I did say this. I loved someone who didn't love me the way I deserved. And now I'm just trying to remember who I was before that. She looked at me and smiled. Then let's remind you. For the first time in a long time, I felt something flicker inside me. Not hope. Not yet. But the idea of it. Layla tried one last time. She sent a letter. Handwritten. 6 pages of regret, apologies, flashbacks, pain. She talked about how empty she felt, how the thrill had turned into shame, how she missed the version of herself she was with me. I read it. Twice. Then I folded it, placed it in my drawer, and never replied. Because closure didn't come from her words. It came from the silence that followed. 6 months had passed. Not a day went by without a shadow of her name brushing against my mind, but it no longer cut. It was like an old scar, there but no longer bleeding. I'd finished building the app Leo, and I started working on a secure journaling platform for people going through breakups and betrayals. We called it Ashes, because sometimes the only way to rebuild your life is to let it burn first. The launch got more traction than we expected. People wrote in from all over. Men, women, partners left in the cold, voices like mine that had once screamed into the void. Somehow, my pain had turned into purpose. One day, while leaving a community talk I gave at a wellness center, I spotted Layla across the street. She looked small, not physically, but spiritually, like the vibrant woman I married had been stripped away and replaced with a shell who now carried her shame in every step. Her hair was dull, her shoulders slumped. There was no sparkle in her walk. She didn't see me. Or maybe she did and just couldn't bear to look. Either way, I kept walking. Some ghosts don't need a final conversation. Sometimes, silence is the final chapter. A few days later, I got another message from her sister, Erin. Just 2 lines. She moved in with our parents. She's in therapy now. She finally accepted it's over. That was the last I heard of Layla. And honestly, that's all I needed. Sierra and I weren't a love story yet. We weren't even a story. But we were a beginning. We met for coffee every week, slowly learning each other's cracks and cautions. She didn't try to fix me. She didn't pity me. She just saw me, the man who was still standing. One evening, while sitting on a park bench with her watching the sun dip below the skyline, She turned and said, "I think broken people make the best kind of strong. You don't fake anything." I looked at her, really looked, and for once, didn't feel guilt for smiling. "You know," I said, "I used to think revenge was the win." She raised a brow. "And now I know it's peace. Because revenge had its day. The court, the finances, the photos, the ruined career. Every piece of justice had been served. But what Layla never expected was that the final blow wouldn't be loud. It wouldn't be her name on headlines or office gossip. It would be my silence, my disappearance from her world, my refusal to let her story shape mine. She expected rage, but I gave her the one thing her ego couldn't process: irrelevance. In the end, I didn't just walk away from the woman who betrayed me. I walked back to the man I used to be, and somewhere along that road, I became something better. Not bitter, just free.